Hello everyone, this is Nei Gone Mad, filling in for Charminingman 1488, and today we're looking at the best, the freshest, the juiciest memes in the game. Libertarians and anarcho-capitalists. So I was smoking crystal meth and shooting heroin up my arm when I was made aware of this video, Questions for Statists by Anarchy Ball.
Hey statists, we've got some questions for you.
The video has been mirrored on a few channels, but Anarchy Ball is clearly the superior mastermind behind this amazing content, as evident by the shitty, unappealing watermarks and the editing of a 5-year-old. Look at this. Does he watch his videos before he uploads them? Because that would be nothing but beneficial. Anyway, fuck that, on with the questions. Just for the record, I skipped the questions that don't concern me and my political views. The thing is that you will never find two statists with the same opinion on a given issue, because it's pretty much 98% of the fucking population. Statist is pretty much a buzzword for anyone who isn't a libertarian, and is therefore fucking useless, and it's basically cisgender for libertarians. So with that in mind, know that not all your questions will be answered.
If a kid couldn't afford lunch because the school bullies kept taking a percentage of his allowance, you wouldn't blame the kid's parents for not giving him enough. So why is it that when people struggle financially, you blame the employer who provides them with money and not the government which is taxing them?
Bullies and the government are not analogous. If a bully takes a percentage of your money, it's very unlikely that they would provide emergency services 24/7 in return. Also, employees don't live with their employer, and parents give you money just because you're their child. You don't necessarily need to do any work to get money from them. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ, this analogy is fucking flawed, dude. You can't get new parents if they don't give you enough lunch money either. Not to mention that your financial struggle thing is too vague for me to judge who is responsible for what. Why is this person struggling? We don't know. We don't fucking know. For all we know, it could be that person's fucking fault because they're bad at finance. Bottom line, if you work, you have to expect taxes. But a bully is an extra risk.
For fans of democracy, I would ask, is it okay to forcibly rob, control, or otherwise victimize somebody as long as the majority approves of it?
With the information given, it's a no.
We all know that every economic system has market failures. Capitalism, socialism, communism, whatever. But my question is, why do you feel morally justified in forcing other people to subsidize these failures? Why should I be forced to subsidize failed electric car companies like Fisker or failed government initiatives like Obamacare? Shouldn't I have the right to decide what risk I want to take with my own money?
Just because I'm not an anarchist or a libertarian doesn't mean I agree with everything the state does. For sure, if something is a failure overall, I don't see any reason as to why it should be backed by any government agency at all.
So I punched this comic face in and said, "How do you like those marks?"
What the fuck is this shit? So basically this guy is reading a book, naked, on his fucking toilet seat. Big Dicko? Is that your name? Jesus Christ.
How can you claim on one hand to be anti-guns, yet on the other hand, you want the state to take guns away at gunpoint? Pew pew.
How do you define anti-guns? Because one could be against private ownership of guns, but that doesn't mean they're against the police or the military being armed. The other thing is that taking guns, at least in the US, is completely impractical and just a fucking pipe dream. Also, the reason as to why US citizens have guns versus the reason why the police or the military is armed is completely different. And a citizen not owning guns doesn't delegitimize government bodies using them. Owning a gun comes with a responsibility, and that's why reasonable gun control is a good thing. But that's also why people might not trust regular citizens with guns, and therefore be against their ownership. I just wanted to take the time to comment on the backgrounds Anarchy Ball uses in his videos. He seems to think that anarchy would bring him a great amount of wealth, which to me sounds like the reasoning of a 5-year-old.
Government has slaughtered 250 million of its own people in acts of democide. How can you trust such a beast to rule over you? And as some of you argue for, to be disarmed to.
Who is the government supposed to represent? The government is not this monolithic entity that just acts as a whole. I mean, your fucker at the DMV and a soldier do not have the same amount of competence, and responsibility. Their jobs are drastically different. If you want to hold someone accountable for murder, look at who murdered these people or who commended the murders. I wouldn't trust these people, sure, but that doesn't mean that I don't trust government as a whole. That's ridiculous. For an individualist anarchy ball, you seem to resort to collectivist mindsets a lot.
If keeping 100% of someone else's income is slavery, then at what percentage is it no longer slavery?
Are we assuming that the main component of slavery is money? Because that's just simply not the fucking case. What you're saying is that if someone is being robbed of 100% of their income, they are slaves. That doesn't make any fucking sense. Does being looted by a gang make you a slave of that gang? No.
Can a bunch of people who don't have the right to do a certain thing grant to somebody else the right to do it? And if not, how did Congress acquire the right to do things that you and I don't have the right to do?
Yes, it's fine for a group of people to grant rights to an elite, knowing that they won't be granted the same. Chances are, if they do so, it's because they don't want to deal with the consequences of what having said right entails. It puts you under pressure and scrutiny, and not everyone wants that. For the analogy, you're with a group of friends, and one has to organize a party. You all point to the same guy and tell him, well, you should do it. Your parties are always well planned, etc. And next thing you know, he agrees. You've given him power to organize the party, and in principle, he is in charge of the thing. And you should ask him permission before doing anything related to the event. You put him in charge. That gives him all the responsibility. And if the party is a fucking failure, he is responsible for that failure. Not you guys.
You do realize that making something illegal won't make it go away. Guns, drugs, the black market will provide.
Why even have laws, am I right?
If the competitive market ingenuity of capitalism can deliver us things like iPhones, 3D printers, and private spaceships, why should services as important as justice, roads, and defense be monopolized by the state?
Because competition or privatization doesn't necessarily result in the best outcome. Simple as that.
Here are the things you can't do without government permission. Build a house, drive a car, own a gun, go fishing, collect rainwater, hunt, cross the road, get married, leave the country, start a business, fly on a commercial plane, take drugs, work. It's actually hard to think of something that doesn't require government permission. Knowing this, how can you say you're free?
So the argument here is that regulations and laws make people unfree. But the thing is that absolute freedom does not exist. You are always free within a certain framework. I'm free not to marry someone. I'm free not to build a house. Just because I have to ask for a sheet of paper doesn't mean that I can't do it. Not to mention that my freedom stops where yours begin and vice versa. Regulation doesn't mean absence of freedom, and regulations would still exist without government anyway. Because in an NCAP system, I doubt there would be such a thing as a public space. So then again, if you want to build a home somewhere, either you have to own a piece of property, or if you don't, you have to ask for the owner's permission. Same thing with fishing. As for drugs, assuming medical integrity would still be a thing, it would be your doctor prescribing you certain drugs. So it's kind of back to square one again. As for marriage, the only reason marriage is handled by government is because being married changes your legal status. Under an NCAP system, I don't see the need for marriage. Also, you're talking about driving a car. The reason you need a license to drive a car is because if you don't, chances are you're gonna fucking crash it if you're not supervised, old enough, or experienced enough. Like I said, you have to account for other people's freedom and safety.
If being a democratically elected constitutional republic creates legitimate political authority, does that mean that all the things that were done by the democratically elected constitutional republics of the Soviet Union, Nazi Germany, and North Korea, all those things were legitimate and justified?
The thing is that there is a big difference between an idea on paper and how it's applied. I don't need to defend the Soviet Union in order to agree with the concept of democratically ran republic. That's completely dishonest and fallacious. The same way, It would be dishonest to say that everything done via a certain mean is always good or always bad. That's ridiculous. And you're taking examples of regimes where pluralism of parties is completely outlawed. That's barely fucking democracy. That doesn't compare to European democracies or even the US.
If you're a proud, government-loving liberal who champions personal choice, could you please explain why I can't choose to not fund the murder of innocent children abroad?
Vote for someone who doesn't want to strike foreign countries. Simple as that.
How highly do you think of yourself that you think it's your right to impose your views on people you've never met and tell them it's good for them?
It's more pragmatic to just do things regardless and wait for an outcome. You're never going to get everyone to agree with you, and being a leader or making decisions is not an easy process. Someone has to take one for the team, knowing that people are going to disagree. Now, whether it's good for them is another question. But at one point or another, you have to make a decision of your own. The same thing happens in big companies. If you adopt a new procedure or if you restructure some parts of the company, you're going to be faced with the same problem. The rest of the questions, either I will address in a subsequent video or I don't give a shit. I mean, I don't have to answer everything. This video is already long enough as it is. Fuck me, right? Anyway, thank you Charminingman for this opportunity to broadcast my Kensa to your 5,000 subscribers. Make sure to check out my channel, link in the description, and I'll see you in hell. Fuck you guys.